Welcome to Let's Make Cake. I'm your host, Michelle Pyle. Thanks for being here. We're here to overcome depression and anxiety and make a new life. That is something that I did, so I'm wanting to help others do that as well. So today I want to talk about how getting better is not about becoming perfect. Anything. Perfect in anything, perfect in relationships, perfect at work, perfect with yourself. We kind of want to let any ideas of that go because it's not going to happen. It's not possible, and it's not the goal of all of this. So as we're talking about getting better and all these tools and concepts and just how we go about life and how we do all of this. I just want to make sure that we're not thinking that at the end or we're reaching some point where, we wake up and we're this perfect version of who we think we should be or want to be. Because it's not realistic at all. And it will be very discouraging, like if that's kind of what you're thinking. So we just want to focus on we're getting better, right? So, for example, like my anxiety is way better, but significantly better than it ever has been in my whole life. But it doesn't mean I never experience anxiety. The difference now is that I know how to manage it. I have tools and skills to navigate it. And so it has less of an impact on my life and on me and like my overall sort of happiness. My relationships are getting better and better, but they're certainly not perfect. There are still misunderstandings and hurt feelings and frustrations. All that stuff still happens. It's just now I know how to deal with it in a much better way. So that's kind of we just want to start thinking about it that way. Like there's no perfect life that you're gonna create. You're still gonna have conflict and frustrations and challenges. It's just now we're going to manage it much, much, much better. It's not going to knock us off our feet, etc. Another example is we're going to start to know ourselves right better and better and kind of understand. And this is probably the biggest one for me, I think, is all of this is sort of uncovering who we are to ourselves, right? Which sounds crazy, but depression and anxiety can get you way off track. You don't really know, you feel like maybe you don't know, who am I? What do I like? What life do I want? And so part of this process is sort of uncovering that by one, eliminating the depression and decreasing the anxiety will allow you to get to know yourself better, which is super cool. So you want to learn, for me, I started to really understand what are habits that I have that make me feel good, and then go about prioritizing those things. What things do I do that don't make me feel good? And eliminating those things or reducing those things, right? So it is about getting to know what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad. As simplistic as that sounds, we're not necessarily good at that, especially if we have depression, because it kind of muddles everything up. And so through this process, it is sort of uncovering what are the things that I can do that make me feel really good about who I am, or just make me feel good in general, right? Put a smile on my face. It's also, I went through this process of accepting things about myself that maybe in the past I tried to change or refuse to accept about myself. And that's a really big one because, just self-acceptance is super important, and figuring out it's okay to have flaws. It's okay to not be perfect. And that is a process. You might resist it, especially my perfectionists out there. You do want to be perfect, but you really are going to have to work on letting that go. It's just about becoming more aware of who we are, accepting of who we are, developing better skills and on how to deal with things, becoming better at identifying our desires and what we do want. That might not be something we're very good at if you've lived with depression and anxiety for any period of time, because that just completely confuses everything. So that's going to be something we're going to uncover, that this is all based on my experience. So take it for what it is. But, and then developing better habits to support like where we want to go with our lives once we do start to identify that. But yeah, it's about like just building on all of those things, not reaching some like magical end of perfection. So another example I'll give that might help bring this point home is if you like, I like to read self-improvement books, and maybe you do too, probably if you're watching this video, that's something you probably are interested in. And I think one of the mistakes we can make is like, okay, this book will solve my problems. This will fix me. It will fix my life. And that is not a great way to go about like reading books, or maybe, following people on Instagram who talk about this stuff, or, I used to do courses and things like that. There's not like this cure that's suddenly going to happen from the book or from the course. You want to think of it instead as like you're building your knowledge of yourself, of others, understanding others, navigating this whole like human experience, which is a lot. So you want to think of it instead as just like I'm adding to my knowledge base, right? I'm becoming, I'm going to take pieces from here and here. Maybe I'll develop a new habit. Maybe I will practice a new skill. But you want to think of it as additive, not this book is going to fix me. And just, I say that because I've done it for many years. I'd be like, oh, this is the book that's going to like tell me what's wrong with me, or, how to fix myself. And I just think that's when I finally kind of let that go, and I was like, oh, this is like a lifelong thing I'm just going to be doing, right? I'm going to be learning more about myself and learning more about how I want my relationships to function, and I'm going to be developing new skills, right? I still am doing this today. And I think when you have that kind of attitude, it's much better than I'm going to suddenly like be this perfect person or fix, everything about myself that I don't like. And I think like if you can have this more sort of realistic and actually more positive outlook on all of this, that it will help you not become overwhelmed, because this can be overwhelming if you let it. Like you want to kind of be like, okay, this is something I'm going to do, like ongoing. I'm becoming better and better at navigating things. You don't want to have unrealistic expectations, and you don't want to feel discouraged, right? Because there's just not one like magic thing. And it's actually a lot of little things. And it's weird when you start to do some of these small things and the needle moves and you're like, oh, actually I can have a big impact on my life once I kind of figure out what are these kind of small things that I need to develop or build. I don't know. It's a really interesting process. And I just want to make sure we don't get hung up on thinking there's some, like perfect me waiting if I just do these things. So just because I like to get a little personal, so like I've been through this. So I did, overcome depression, and I overcame anxiety. I still, manage my anxiety, but I still can have a temper, and I still can say awkward things in social situations, right? Like that's just kind of like a part of who I am. And all this work I've done hasn't eliminated what I saw as, flaws that I thought would go away, right? Like once I do all this stuff, I won't get upset anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, like I do have a temper, and that's something that now I manage, right? And I understand what are my triggers, and like I understand how to mitigate and like lessen the number of times that happens, and how extreme it is, etc. And yeah, I still have social anxiety, and I can still make awkward comments or awkward jokes, like because of that social anxiety. But it's like, it's okay. Like that's part of who I am, and that's okay. But what's cool is like when you do all this work, you will reach that point where like you understand that you have these qualities and that it's okay, and that you can still have a great life even with them. So it is like the courage to face kind of what we see as our flaws, to work on them, right? Like I didn't want my temper to keep like ruining relationships, right? So that is something I had to work on, obviously. But kind of accepting it about myself, and then learning how to work with it, instead of against it. So, because all of this is really like becoming you, right? And like where you feel good about yourself, and you feel confident, and you feel I can live with these sort of flaws about myself, and I am this interesting person who, can function in the world and be a part and feel good even with, these flaws. And I would just encourage you like to think about like your favorite people. And when I think about my favorite people, they aren't perfect people, and that's okay. So that's kind of the message is like, it's okay that we're not perfect, right? But we still want to do this work because we want to get better, and we want to become like, ourselves fully with acceptance and with confidence, because there is beauty in that, right? When I've met people who will kind of laugh at their flaws, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like not to be so, serious and like down on ourselves, because that's just it's not helpful. So I just want to make sure, like, because all these videos I'm talking about, ways to get better, and ways to, make improvements and changes and habits and all this stuff. I just want to make sure this is all about just like getting better and becoming better, but it's not about becoming some perfect person. And I will talk a lot about, my flaws, and it's okay. So this is, safe space, so to speak. So that's today's message, just because I know this week I've got a lot coming up of different things to talk about. And I just want to make sure we're not becoming discouraged or overwhelmed thinking I have to move towards this perfect version of me and a perfect life. And because that's definitely not what this is. So I hope that you enjoyed today's message, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, and you can find more on letsmakecake.org. Okay, thanks guys.